What is going on, everybody? This is Rawstarr of the Burbank Misfits, and of course, I'm joined with the delectable co-host, CW.
Hi, that's delectable? Is that what you call me?
Yes, I did. And we are joined here today with a podcaster, business person, father. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Hugo Torres. He is also another podcaster. His podcast is Hugo Post.
Hugosposts, yeah.
So go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, first and foremost, I've been listening, in preparation to record with you to a few of your back recordings. And I will tell you that the gentleman that you just referred to as a delectable, I don't think he quite matches the bill. I think I'm delectable, so I like to keep that moniker for myself. With that being said, you're right. I'm a podcaster. I'm just a guy that has a lot of thoughts going on in his head. I've been a writer for a long time. Not anything that you would publish back in the day, like a big book or into a magazine, but just somebody who has been writing about his life, his experiences for a very long time. And I started blogging a long time ago. Then when Facebook came around, I started to put a little bit of my vignettes and a little bit of my stories on there. And I noticed that when I wrote in those platforms, the attention that people have, the time for attention that people have is very, very short because there's so much that comes on there. And so sometimes when I wrote something, people would ask, well, tell me more about that story, or how did you come across that thought, or what were some of the influences, or what are the things that give more meat to that story? And I decided that instead of blogging about it, I could use the world of podcasting to expand more on my everyday thoughts and what it meant for it. And also, if I'm pissed off about something, then I could talk about it there. I found that through the podcasting community that there's a lot of opinions going on, and it resonates with a lot of people. So that's pretty much how it became. I was posting about things, and people wanted for me to expand on them, and so I decided to create the podcast so that I could have a venue where I could talk that length. As far as business, you said a little bit ago, I've been in the real estate industry for over 16 years. I'm a full-time dad as well. That's something that I've been doing really for the last 4 years. I'm an amazing lover. Ask my wife. She thinks I'm cool. And, and sometimes I'm full of shit. So ask my wife. So all in all, I'm just a regular dude.
That was hilarious. No, because I listened to one of your podcasts, and I like how, a few of your podcasts, and I like how you give your personal stories about, your interactions that you have had with people in the past, and how it has affected everything you do. So I really enjoy the self-story, however you want to call it that, self-story identification podcast you do. Because I believe that everybody's interaction can give a future perspective on how they should behave in certain situations. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I agree with that. I feel in a lot of ways that, especially with men, that sometimes we have this Peter Pan syndrome going on, in the sense of a lot of the stuff that we deal with still now. I'm 40 years old, and I've been dealing with a lot of the same things that tripped me up back in the day, or things that were really powerful as visions or points of view, in my early teens. So I had a lot of great professors. I had a lot of, great books that I came across, great thoughts from many different religions or different ways of thinking. And those things that happened back in the day when I was a teenager were very impacting. And so now that I have some experience, and now that I'm starting to see the world as a fully realized grown man, and also somebody who's raising children, then I can start drawing back from those past experiences, see how my worldview has shifted, has stayed the same, has morphed, and also what do I want to teach on to the next generation, so that they are hopefully not as big of a dumbass as I was, I certainly, I just certainly really want to make sure that I'm doing my part to raise good, responsible citizens. with a sense of humor. And so, yeah, that's I agree with you. My experiences, I think they can correlate to what a lot of people go through, regardless of race, creed, color. And so that's where I come from.
Okay, I mean, I like that. I like that perspective. I'm sorry, someone behind me honking their horn. Because I know you have oh, just walk away. I just know you have a. I believe I listened to the Dad's Babysitter one, and I think I think that was my favorite one that I listened to of yours. So I recommend everybody who's listening that you go check out his podcast and everything, because like his stories are very entertaining and they're very insightful because it gives you a different perspective, because you spent time in New York, correct? So the story of just all your your various locations can really give a good what's the word I'm looking for here? A good progression on everybody's lives, especially since you're now because he talked about insight from when he was single, when he's not single, and as a parent now, and and then just the work he does now in general as a real estate agent. It's just, it gives you all perspective on how you just so you don't make that mistake and you don't just think about everything, and then you listen to his thing and say, you know what, I had a similar experience. I understand this.
And I never looked at it that way.
Exactly. So that's why I think that everybody out there should check out his podcast.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I'll say this is in that sense, I appreciate the fact that there are, I'm Latino, Hispanic. As a matter of fact, all morning long, I've been tweeting back and forth with some people in the community about, the new titles that we're calling ourselves, whether that be Chicano, Latino, Hispanic, and there's so many different ways that people want to talk to call themselves. And I certainly have my own opinion about that. I've called myself Latino for a very long time. And sometimes as a 40-year-old person who's kind of getting old in his ways, like I fight back, how the younger people look at things. And it's my whole point of saying that is that I often find myself on Twitter listening to the points of view of different people, especially people of color, and realizing that we're very similar, especially here in the U.S. and the culture that we live in, that we share a lot of the same experiences, a lot of the same challenges, the same oppressions, but oftentimes we're set up in such a way that we fight amongst ourselves, even when it comes to titles, when it comes to genders, when it comes to roles. And so a lot of the times when I'm looking at these Twitter conversations, it'll spark a thought about something that happened in my life at any given point in time. And I'm like, oh shit, okay, that reminds me of a situation where, a cop pulled me over, or I saw my dad getting pulled over, and what that feeling is like seeing your own dad, like, emasculated in front of you. And then the times when it's happened to me, but also my good interactions with police, because they have happened. They're fewer and far between, but they have happened. or that case when you were talking about that babysitter. I mean, I think that the conversation, or the conversations that we're having between men and women now, and also all these other different types of titles that people are giving, that are coming up with when it regards to gender. Like, I find that fascinating. But yeah, like for instance, if you had, just before I dialed into you guys, like I was ready and getting ready, dinner prepared for the night. I was chopping vegetables and getting the slow cooker putting together. And I would tell you guys more, but I don't want to make you guys hungry because I'm not having you over to my house. So, it's one of those things where I take on a lot of the roles, at least now, that are supposed to be quote unquote for women, and I do them. But at the same time, I'm a full ass man. I do stupid shit like others, full ass men do. I'm also very caring. I'm sensitive. I'm creative, which is one of the things that I've appreciated about what I've learned from about you all, is that you all have a very creative kind of mind. And so it's amazing to live in a time where all of these different points of view are kind of just clashing with one another, sometimes rightly, a lot of times wrongly on the Twitter machine. Mm-hmm. But, we're having these very heavy, or at least I hope that we can start having these heavier conversations without having to talk shit or it getting personal or people threatening one another, because that to me is just bullshit. I mean, you go that route, you've already lost the argument,
Yeah, that's true.
Like I know you have one that you spoke about the Me Too movement and things like that. And I always consider that a very slippery slope these days now, about how what is okay and what isn't okay. And I believe that some stuff that certain things are falling under it now is very I wouldn't consider it as bad as some people point it out to be. Mm-hmm. And I mean I just think it's a very slippery slope now. And it's even it was one that popped up about just someone even just trying to talk to a girl, try to get her attention, and not even saying anything sexual, but just no, I mean in general. I forget what he said directly, but it wasn't sexual. It was just him trying to get her attention, and but it wasn't anything to do with sex. And she said she felt very uncomfortable and stuff like that. And that comfort level is becoming an issue too. And it's just, and I believe I think it was they were in the workplace, but he wasn't her boss. He was a coworker, and he just wanted to, get her attention. I know, I forget exactly what all you said in your Me Too podcast that you had put up, but it just makes you think that I don't think anybody should treat women in wrong or whatever. And I believe that, the justifications of everything, we shouldn't treat women less or how it has been acceptable in the past. But I believe that some things are becoming really, really hard to really determine what's good and what's bad.
Yeah, I don't know if you come across, it's on Netflix if you have it. But it's Dave Chappelle just did that guy, to me, the guy's amazing, and he just happened to be at a comedy place. They were recording him. It's on Netflix, and he just kind of riffs on a bunch of different things. And he talks about the Me Too system or the movement that's going on, and he really talks about the fact that sometimes we shit on our allies. In other words, like you said, you're not trying to be an asshole. Neither am I. I think that there is a lot of good men out there who are trying to go about their everyday without trying to be controversial. They're just trying to, do their jobs. They're just trying to raise their families. They're trying to have fun. And yeah, I mean, everybody likes to fuck. So it's you get into an environment where, you're at a bar, you're at a place, you're having drinks. Shit's gonna go down, right? And in what I was talking about in my podcast is this time where this was back in the day. I was in real estate and I was at a managers conference, and I had been spending time with some people for quite for some time. We were at a bar. We were all drinking. It was a business thing, but everybody gets loose-lipped. This is also back in the day. This is like a decade or more ago. So it was a little different. Social media wasn't what it was like now.
Yeah.
And I'm we were all hanging out. I've been hanging out with this one girl or woman, for a while. And all of a sudden, I see her back tattoo. Right now, I'm a touchy-feely person. I've always been that way. Right. And there's a back tattoo. I've had a couple of drinks on me. I'm like, oh, well, let me take a look at that. And I raised her shirt, right? Mm-hmm. For a second. She comes around, she slaps me right offside the head. And she had a right to, right? Because I didn't, she didn't consent to that. And it's like, oh, fuck, everybody, I get pulled away, she gets pulled away. And I'm like, you know what? I was drunk. I was stupid. I shouldn't have done that. And now I'm going to be mindful from this point forward on. Yeah. And my point in all of that, I hope I did a good enough job in it on the pod, was that, listen, if somebody had taken a video of that exchange right there and then and posted it online like we do now, I'd be the world's biggest asshole. Yeah. And to a certain degree, I've earned that because she didn't consent to that. But my whole point is that we're destroying young people's lives sometimes for things that they do that are infractions. It's not like we're breaking any laws. It's not like it's attempted rape. It's like you made a stupid judgment call because you didn't know any better or you were under the influence. Mm-hmm. But in current days, now you're fucked for it if it goes online. Back in the day, when I was growing up, it was like, okay, my bad. And actually, I went back to my room and I thought about it. And from that day on forward, I made decisions of like, this is, if I don't know somebody, I'm going to approach them that way. Yeah. And I have lived now for almost 15 years or longer than since that event happened. And I have hugged plenty of people and plenty of people have hugged me back. And I ain't never gotten slapped unless it was something that I asked for sexual reasons. And that's not part of this podcast, So it's just one of those things is that we live in a time where and it goes both the other way too, because I've talked about this too on my podcast, is that there have been times when I have been in settings, professional settings, where a random woman or whatever, actually not a random woman, somebody that I work in the office who's a little bit older or whatever, will come up to me and grab my ass. And they do it so quick and so fast, and there's a smile, and they get away with that shit. Yeah. Now, I think, and I think, well, what if I were to talk to a manager and whatnot? Like, nobody's going to take me seriously. Now, I've talked to my wife about it, and, she's like, well, it's your call what you want to do with it. And to me, it's like, all right, listen, it ain't hurting me none. Plus, a little old lady thinks I'm hot, whatever. If she's married, maybe there's some money in it. If she's wealthy, maybe there's some money in it for me. Some money. I can roll with with those punches. And in that sense, I ain't saying that the old generations got it right. There were certainly a lot of asshole things going on back in the day. Mm-hmm. But like we used to give each other a bit more of a benefit of the doubt. Yeah. And so my whole point about Me Too, and I think that's something that Chappelle said in a much better way, in a much more entertaining and funny way. It's like, don't shit on your allies. Don't discount a guy because he did a stupid thing back in the day. Now, if it was criminal, I get it. Throw the fucking book at him, But women do some stupid shit too. Men do some stupid shit. It's like, let's give each other the benefit of the doubt. Now, if that person doesn't learn from that mistake and continues doing it, then fuck him or fuck her. They're wrong to do it. And so that's kind of my take on it. It's like, there's already so many other things that are real problems in the world. We're fighting over whether somebody talked to you and made you feel uncomfortable. I don't know. I just think that's frivolous. And it actually does harm to a very serious conversation, which is the fact that there's a lot of inequality in the world, real inequality in the world, that's keeping people oppressed, people without good drinking water, people getting, hurt and pulled over, if not killed, but, people in power. That ain't right. And those are real problems.
Yeah, so I agree with you completely. And I believe that, many of the cases that are popping up, some of them I want to say, I don't see that as that bad. But I can understand how some people might feel, uncomfortable and they don't feel things are right. But also I feel that some things are really, really innocent. And if we allow every innocent thing to fall under that category, we're going to put ourselves in a box. and not focus on everything that, what is really happening to all the bigger issues, in my opinion.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I think you're right, and that's where sometimes that's why I like the podcasting approach to it, because a lot of it gets lost in nuance. And what I mean by that is, if you and I, have a conversation on Twitter about something that is important to both of us, but we don't quite agree, we lose so much of the fact because we can't see each other and we cannot hear our voices, right? Because you might think, oh, that fucker's shouting at me, and I may not be. I may just, or you may say that guy's being sarcastic, or he's belittling my point, or X, Y, and Z, and I may say to you, or I may think the same to you. I have an old adage from my business practice that if I have to write an email over three times to get my point across, then I better just pick up the phone or set up a meeting and let's talk about it. Because obviously the conversation, we're not clarifying between one another. So it's better to meet in person to hash it out. And that's something that is really lacking today. And that's why I like people's voices, because I can hear their inflection. I can hear when they're mad. I can hear when they're happy. And that gives me a much bigger clue about where their heart is at on things. And we don't get that a lot on Twitter.
Well, honestly, I agree with you. I believe that a lot of interactions that people have, it goes by the wayside because we can't understand how people are thinking, how they're feeling, and if they're serious or not, or they're just poking fun at some issues that have occurred.
No headspace. It goes so much into how you interpret somebody's 140 characters.
Yeah, and then how you were feeling that day. Like, you could know that it's a joke, but you could take it as a personal attack. And because you're taking it as a personal attack, or you feel this way about a certain topic, it makes it a lot worse than what it is.
Yeah, as they say, hit dogs holler.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say this, guys.
You're a famous person, like a celebrity, whatever, and you say a certain thing about a certain topic, but your history isn't as well off. I want to say well off. It just makes it worse on you, and makes the issue kind of belittled.
Yeah, because that's and I've talked about this on the podcast as well. I'm a little guy when it not where it counts, but I'm a little guy when, as far as podcasting is concerned. My audience isn't big, but I'm hoping that if I do a good enough job, or if the word gets out through podcasts like you, and the audience starts to grow, that one day I'll have a real audience or a sizable audience, and that they'll care about what I have to say. And I was just talking to another podcaster about this, is the fact that I think that the audience actually does want to connect with you, and that's where a thing like Twitter can be a good thing. But like you said, it could also go the other way, and things can be taken really out of context real fast, and it could burn you. And there's 1,000 stories out there of somebody putting a tweet online, walking away from their internet, from their phone, come back 8 hours later, and their whole life is destroyed. And that scares the shit out of me. Have you guys heard about that?
Yeah, that's scary as fuck. You're like, I just tweet out this, joke. Okay, it's a bad taste. Guess what? Just lost my job.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that sucks, and that's why I have a couple of rules when it comes to the Twitter machine. Number one, I don't tweet when I've been drinking, and I drink a lot, so I only have 2 hours during the day to do it. So I don't tweet when I'm drinking. Before I respond to somebody who I really don't agree with their opinion, I'll look through their stream and try to see if they're a crazy person, because I'm not gonna waste my time fighting with crazy people.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And
I mean, you can't really tell who's crazy anymore. Sometimes.
yeah, well, I mean,
There's
I
some
looked through
people who look
all.
like they're most sane, like they're really sane, and you're about to have a sensible conversation. I mean, you can read their tweets, and then like they just might just go insane one day, and then you're in a you say one thing back to them, they retweet what that other person said like 200 times. This is like something that happened to me. They retweet what they said 2,000 times, and it's like, I wasn't. And then it could be a whole misunderstanding, but because that person misunderstood what you said and they said something back at you, you're the a-hole in the situation.
Right. So, I mean, I do a little bit of research on people before I interact with them. If it's definitely something that I don't agree with, and then there's some people that surprise me. There's some people that I thought, oh, they're going to be cool. And then, this just happened to me yesterday. They get pissed off and I'm like, well, you're not the person that I thought you were. But that's the internet, and so you take your chances. But more than anything, I just, I try to put good vibes out there. I mean, I certainly have my opinion of things and I'll defend them. But after a while, if we're not seeing eye to eye, I'm okay with not having the last word. And I think that's the other important part of it, is that I don't ever get so fucking into a conversation that I can't walk away from it. And that has taken me some time to do because, I'll be honest, I think I walk on water, but there's sometimes when you just can't change a person's mind and you just have to agree to disagree. But if you're the kind of person that needs to have the last word, you'll be on Twitter forever. And that ain't healthy.
That's true. That's very true.
See, the way I look at it is, as long as you said your piece and your point, you believe you made your point, that's where it can end. But if it goes further than that, and there's a whole bunch of misunderstandings, and people are chiming in, attacking you, and that's when you should just back away from it. And I feel that so many people make things worse, going in and in and in and in, and I mean, there's so much out there that should be socially okay because we're humans, at the end of the day. But then there are some things that are like, that's iffy. Like if you're spewing hate, that's iffy. If you I was on someone else's podcast, and it was a call-in podcast, and then all of a sudden the dude who called in just kept saying that he wanted the girl to give him fellatio out of nowhere. And it was like, it wasn't even a part of the conversation. He just intertwined that. That's unnecessary, So it's like, people don't know when to pick and choose what to say online and what is not okay. Not every thought that is in your facet should be even said,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the challenges, I think, too, about the social media, thing, is the fact that, and it's something that I struggle with my kids. Because, I mean, for instance, one of them came the other day and was like, hey, how do I get a YouTube channel? And I'm like, dude, hold your horses. Because, you think that, you're putting in your little videos of whatever it is that you happen to do, but you also don't know who you're inviting into your circle, who the heck is watching you. You don't know. So I think you need to develop a certain emotional maturity to be online. And I can tell you right now, you can barely, put deodorant on it every day. So, chill. But
honestly, it's the same mentality I was thinking of the other day, because I was I sent a text to my coworker about how many people are listening to this in particular podcast, and I know for a fact that of that number, only I want to say a fourth of those people are people who I know personally, and it's or I know who they are who are listening, and so it's we have jumped aboard certain people who are listening to us. We're getting our information, and then even just knowing that you have to be mindful of what you say now, because what we might say might be an influence on whoever else is out there listening. And then because we are in a form where it can be listened to worldwide, it's like, we got to be just careful about everything, because if someone takes anything that we say in the wrong capacity, they might say, well, I was listening to yada yada, and that influence made me do this or that. Even if it has nothing to do with anything, it could be taken completely out of context, or it was just, a viewpoint on something,
Right.
Right.
And that's why I struggle too with, and I do it on my tweets, and I do it about what I talk about, is that there's this concept of shock culture, and that in order to be popular, to be interesting, you have to be shocking, or you have to say really shitty things in order to like amass an audience. And that's something that I fight against. It's like, I know that I may never have 100,000 followers on, let's say, Twitter, because I'm not going out there and saying fuck you to 1,000 people and try to piss them off, and that's going to attract trolls, and that's going to mean followers. I'd rather have a small community of followers that are just cool people that I can interact with, that I can debate with, that that I can have a back and forth with. I'd rather have a quality group of people than amass a group of dickheads that don't bring anything into my life. You know what I mean? And so, and that's where, like, I see with kids, it's like, oh, well, I'm just going to do, fucked up pranks on YouTube, and that's going to give me a bunch of followers, but I'm going to harm other people. I'm going to, make it so that other little kids can go out there and do stupid shit and maybe hurt themselves. Like Joe Rogan on his podcast talks about this, that we're going through this technological adolescence, sorry, my accent comes in sometimes, adolescence, where we haven't figured out how to play with this toy. And so, we're going to make these mistakes.
With this toy. And I think it's always changing, and it's always so much more stuff that becomes acceptable to put out there, and then it's like so much out there that becomes not acceptable. And if you said something that's not acceptable, like 8 years, like a video that me and CW might have put up, like in 2010, might become not acceptable. And and then it's like, they said this back in 2010, and it's like, we've grown as humans, because in 2010 I was 27, so it's like, I'm not the same human I was back then,
Yeah, and for instance, I'll give an first and foremost, and that's one of the things I look at when things come up for a celebrity, or even a person who is not well known but becomes infamous or famous because of something that they said a long time ago. I always try to look at, well, who was I back in the day, right? What was I saying back in the day? Because I am fucking awesome now, but I wasn't Shakespeare back when I was 22. I was doing and saying some dumb things back in the day. So I can't get all holier than down now and say, well, shame on this guy for saying things that were, stupid. Now, racism is racism, right? Sexism is sexism. If you felt that way back in the day and you were saying that kind of shit, that's a different story. But if you make an off-color joke back in the day, or if you just had an opinion that you have changed over time, I'm going to try to give you the benefit of the doubt, because I don't think most people are dicks. I think most people just they're uneducated. And I hope that through life, through experiences, if you have a really willingness to learn, that you can shed away some of the dumb things that you used to believe back when you were a kid.
That's true. I feel that, like, because, for example, a lot of the comedy specials that came out, like, people are going back to comedy specials from the 80s of stuff that people said, like I'm sorry, Delirious and Raw are two of the funniest comedy specials. Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, they are.
they're up there with it. Like,
Richard Pryor did say something about Eddie Murphy's comedy. He said it was kind of mean. He was kind of mean with his comedy. I have to agree. But if you watch, like, if they went to like In Living Color, everybody's
yeah. So it's like, and then like they say, well, some of that isn't, right, and like this is bad. We should, not listen to these people now. And don't get me wrong, Eddie Murphy is not as funny as he used to be, like back in the 80s, but now these days. And what I'm saying is like, so people are shunning everything he did before, or shunning stuff that someone said like a long time ago, and it's like a pun on a joke, but it's trying to be, hateful. Like, I believe it's the difference between joking about something and being hateful towards somebody. And like, people are taking, little jokes as hateful. And that's when, the line is really,
Yeah, we blurred the line. I listen to a lot of comics. I'm a big fan of comedy, and I think comedians are some of the smartest people in the world, because they thread that line where you're saying shit to, you're saying truth things, but you're saying in a way that or you're trying to shock, but you're trying to be funny at the same time, and that's not an easy thing to do. Comedy is not easy. Anybody who's ever tried stand-up comedy, and I haven't, and I'm a funny fuck, but I don't have the balls to go out there and get in front of a mic in front of people to make people laugh. And so I listen to a lot of comedians, and and a lot of them are in trouble, are trouble now, and because of shit that they said back in the day. And it's like, well, you got to look at the time that they were in. You got to look at the delivery. You also, if you just hear a word and it triggers you, but you don't understand, you don't actually listen to the joke, the context of the joke, you may actually come to understand that that this comedian's on your side, but he just happens to use the word. Yesterday, my kids and I were watching Analyze This. I don't know if you guys remember that movie. It's got Robert De Niro and Billy Crystal. Like Robert De Niro's like a gang member, gang lord, and Billy Crystal's like a psychologist, and the De Niro character, he's having some problems, like from Soprano style, and he needs to talk to a psychologist, and he starts talking to Billy Crystal, right? And in the middle of the comedy, he's like, don't turn me into a fag. If you make me a fag, you're the dead man, or something along those lines. And all of a sudden, like, I stopped in the middle of it because I forgot the movie, and my kids were like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, oh shit, well, now I have to have a conversation. But we did. We sat down, and I'm like, okay, guys, back in the day, this is the reason, this is the words that we use to describe certain people. And that's not something that we use now, or something that I would be disappointed if you were to use it today, because it's not appropriate and it's not something that we care for. And there's certain words in our home that we just do not use, right? But like, now I could have gone up to or we could have gone about it at a separate way. So I could have said, well, this is the worst movie in the world. You'll never see it. There's no comedy in it because they used a really, really bad word. So we're done with it. Or we could say, like, listen, this is a place where I as a parent can teach you, and I can give you some background and history about what we used to be and where we're at, and also what my expectations are for you in the future. And so you turn a negative into a positive. But if you can't stand, you yourself as an adult can't process, then we're fucked, because unfortunately, this is how we teach if we care to.
I do think about what you just said, like like certain aspects of what's going on in society at a certain time, because CW over here, like, he has done stand-up comedy and things like that. And I'm thinking, like, when you said that, it made me think of a joke that he said when, like, he was talking about his your ex-wife, yeah. And when he was talking about, like, about certain things that they couldn't do when they were flying.
Well, yeah, in this, I was married to a very conservative Muslim woman, and but it didn't work out. We were just too different. She liked action movies. I like comedies. I like cookies and cream, ice cream. She likes spumoni. I like to travel. She was on a no-fly list.
Right. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
and so like, if people might see that, like, oh, you're trying to say all of our, like, all of people, even though he's Muslim, and it's like, oh, you're trying to speak about all.
I would say was.
Yeah, that's just my thing. In the contest of comedy, like, you gotta suspend. I was watching this really interesting. I don't know if it was a documentary. I think it's something on Vox, but they were talking about comedians going to college campuses and how modern comedians have they're being asked to be very sensitive about the jokes that they tell, because college campuses are safe spaces and you don't want to trigger people. Now, I'm of two minds on that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, it's important. I understand you want to be sensitive. There's people from all walks of life coming into colleges and whatnot. But the way that I understood college was that it was a place for you to learn, to be educated, but also to have your conceptions challenged.
Yes.
And to ask a comedian to water down their art, because to me, comedy is art. Nobody, very, very, very few people have the artistic ability to go in front of people and make them laugh and kill. That is a craft. It takes a long time to develop a joke, I think. It takes a long time to understand how to deliver it, to also understand your audience, and to go out there and have the confidence to do it. So to tell somebody who has been working on a joke or a set of jokes for a long time to water it down because you don't want to piss off, 19-year-old Keebler, like, fuck off. And so, but that's one of the challenges that I'm seeing with my kids, is the fact that I want them to learn to be mindful and sensitive and care about others. At the same time, well, if I'm their dad, I tell a lot of shitty jokes. If they're going to need to learn how to deal with me. And so it's that fine balance of having a good sense of humor and at the same time not being an asshole. And that's where the concept of intent becomes so important. Having larger conversations without getting it personal is so important. And I think comedians are a real big, canary in the coal mine, for lack of a better term, about how sensitive, society is.
But no, but we really appreciate, like, this time went really fast because we already hit 42 minutes. We only do like a 45-minute podcast. And I believe that, like, a lot of our listeners will get a lot out of what you said. I mean, like, I found it very informative, especially with the whole comedy stuff, about the Me Too stuff. And we didn't even get into our topic that we had put aside. So, like, I believe that you have a very good insight on the world as a whole.
Yes,
I'll say that. But please tell everybody where to find everything that you do and how they could, search you out and everything.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, guys, sorry about the technical problems there, but I'm sure that you'll do your magic and make it all sound like we all know what we're doing. And second of all, it's just really nice to come across people that are just cool, who want to have a conversation. And you're right, we did not get into the topic that we wanted to discuss, but I hope that there's an opportunity for us to do it later, because y'all are terrific people to go back and forth with. Well, as far as the podcast is concerned, you can find me pretty much everywhere, under Hugo's Posts. I'm also on Twitter, Hugo's Post, and on Instagram at Hugo Torres, Torres. And if you go there, you'll see all of my cooking, because I'm cooking all the time. I have a lot of hungry mouths to feed, and I am always making something delicious, and that's that's a place for you to check all that out. And outside of that, pretty much there's links on everything on my channel and on my Twitter machine thing. So you can find me there. And again, I'm just really appreciative of the time that we had to talk today.
No, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Like it's a complete different way than we normally do podcasts.
Yeah, it is.
So like it's very informative, and I believe people will really enjoy this. But
Awesome.
for everybody up there who's listening, if this is your first time, if you want to follow us, we're at Burbank Misfits on Twitter. And on Facebook, we're at the Burbank Misfits on Instagram. If you want to follow CW directly, his thing is Jess_genetics_Chris on Instagram. You could also hit his fitness gym up, CC Fitness. That's the letter C, CC Fitness LA on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook. If you want to follow me directly, it's at Rawstarr on every medium. Also ccfitnessla.com or burbankmisfits.com. Thank you for listening. Please tune in next week, and we will talk to you later. Have an amazing day.